Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn one more powerful and inspirational poem. The name of the poem is Invictus. It is a poem which focuses on the human spirit and its ability to overcome adversity. Before we start the poem, let us know some information about the author. William Ernest Henley was born on 23rd August 1849 and died on 11th July 1903. He was an influential English poet, critic and editor of the late Victorian era in England. Though he wrote several books of poetry, Henley is remembered most often for his 1875 poem Invictus and A Love by the Sea, a piece that remains in popular awareness. During Henley's childhood years, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis of the bone that resulted in the amputation of his left leg below the knee. Amputation means surgical removal of all or part of a limb. The early years of Henley's life was very painful. Let us know the central idea of the poem. The central idea of the poem revolves around the poet's struggles and hardships that he had encountered at the very early stage. In spite of all these trials and tribulations means what? Difficulties, hardships or problems, especially those that test one's courage, endurance or resolve. In spite of all these trials and tribulations, he fought with resilience to overcome them. The poet wants to be an ardent fighter of difficulties and he had a never say die attitude. Never say die attitude means never give up. In this poem, the poet talks about the deep realities of life which are not smooth and flawless. He knows the hard truth of life that everyone's life is full of troubles which come with different circumstances. Students, the poet had written this poem while he was in the hospital for recovery of the tuberculosis of the bone. Before stanza-wise explanation, let us recite the poem. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. By William Ernest Henley. Students, let us understand the poem stanza-wise. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Students, here night means hardships or difficulties. Black, hopelessness. Pit, a large deep hole in the ground. The poet says that he is surrounded by hardships or difficulties. They are as black as the center of the earth. Students, as I told you, the poet was suffering from tuberculosis of the bone and there was very less chance to cure from it. There was no ray of hope only to recover soon. The poet is thankful for unconquerable soul because it has given him strength to tolerate difficult situation or pains. Students, in the first line, out of the night that covers me, metaphor figures of speech has been used. The night is indirectly compared to difficulties. And in the second line, black as the peat from pole to pole, here the poet has used simile, as there is a direct comparison between the dark night and a deep black pit. Here, alliteration has been also used, as the sound of letter P is repeated in pit and pole. So students, what is the poet thankful for? The poet is thankful for unconquerable soul. And here what does the night symbolize? The night in the poem refers to the trials and tribulations faced by the poet. Second stanza. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Here, winced means jerked with pain, fell clutch, wicked trap, bludgeonings, violent beating with a club. The poet says that though he was victim of trials and tribulations or wicked circumstances, he has neither reacted with pain nor cried aloud. Though the poet was suffering from unending or intense pains, his head is bloody but unbowed. My head is bloody but unbowed. This particular line from the second stanza indicates the poet's suffering. It portrays the inner strength of the poet, and in spite of the unending pain, he still feels he can face any situation. No matter how difficult the situation is, he will keep his head up and fight such troubles. In his illness also, he was strong and determined. Students, in the fell clutch of circumstances, here the poet has used personification figures of speech. The circumstances are given the human quality of trapping something wickedly. Students, what was the poet's reaction when he was caught in the fell clutch of circumstances? The poet, who was extremely strong while facing the difficult circumstances, neither winced nor cried. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. Students, here the place of wrath and tears refers to the world we live in, which is full of anger and sufferings. That is sadness. The poet says that beyond this world of anger and sadness in which we live, there exists the dark unknown which may hold more hardships for the soul. Students, here we come to know that the poet believes in after life. That is, he feels that there is life after death. Here, menace means threat. He says even the threat of what may happen later does not make me afraid. Students, the past troubled years have prepared the poet for the future ones. Let us understand the last stanza of the poem, that is fourth stanza. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. In the fourth stanza, the poet explains how the person is the controller of his own life. Straight means narrow, that is in reference to the gate, and scroll means a roll of paper for writing on. It does not matter how narrow or difficult the gate to heaven is, or how many more punishments are written on the official roll of paper. The poet says with utter confidence that he is the master of his own fate and the captain of his soul. He has the sole authority of his own life. Whenever he encounters such problems or troubles or such circumstances in his life, or whatever life throws at him, he knows that he is the captain of his soul and he can manage his own life just like the captain of a ship. He feels that his life is a big ship sailing through the waves of different circumstances and troubles. He is convinced that he can rule his own life and overcome his obstacles. So students, what does the poet have full control over? The poet has full control over his fate and soul. In the last two lines, that is, I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul, the poet has used repetition and metaphor figures of speech. Repetition, the phrase I am is repeated. Metaphor, the poet compares himself to a master and a captain. Students, the poem has been written in a fixed rhythm and has been divided into 4 stanzas of 4 lines each. The rhyme scheme of each stanza is AB, AB. Students, the message we get from the poem is, it doesn't matter who you are, you can overcome dark times by being brave and never losing faith in yourself. We must believe in the invincibility of our eternal soul. We are in charge of our own fate and our life. Students, watch the video again and again to understand the meaning of each line. Thank you.